Well, it's always a fun way to start out the show after a long day. And again, I always look forward to Wednesday evenings with you here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. But boy, I don't. I've had more technical difficulties here over the past week than I've had in like the last year. So there's that. I guess it coincides with Iowa's struggles on offense. Hawkeye Hangout live edition of the show here as we approach a big-time game in Champaign, a game in which a lot of motivation on the Illini side to get this victory, not only because of who their head coach is, but it just feels like perhaps they've turned a significant corner in their quest. Let's see if I can get my lighting even to work. Their quest to be relevant in this division. And boy, this is the year to make that jump, given the struggles across the division, not just with Iowa, but with Wisconsin, with even Minnesota last week with a surprising defeat at home to Purdue. And, certainly Nebraska and Northwestern's irrelevancy right now. So, again, appreciate everybody being patient with me this evening. Last week I think it was last week was the call-in line we had issues with. I think we've got that fixed. Basically, I'll just give you this in layman's terms, so I'm not going to bore you with why we delayed this thing by like 20 minutes or so. Basically, StreamYard and YouTube, I don't know which one to blame. Basically, they said we're no longer going to communicate with one another, so you have to start from scratch. So we literally had to launch a new show. I know it may not seem like it probably takes a ton of effort, but it does take some time to achieve. So appreciate everybody being patient here as we got this relaunched. Okay, let me get my camera here where I want it. And just so everybody's aware, I believe we have was able to get the call-in lines fixed here as well. So both lines are open. And I mean, when I say both lines, 515-635-1601, our phone line, but also you can join by clicking the link in the description below. All right. So click the link in the description below to join. You don't have to have your video on, but it's the way you join through internet, through StreamYard. And we'll hope that StreamYard stays working for us throughout the evening. Want to thank Tony, our newest member. Appreciate Tony jumping on despite our technical difficulties. Appreciate Tony for being the latest to jump on here as a premium member. And of course, as a premium member, you'll get select early access. I should say early access to select videos here on the channel. And of course, you'll get some other perks. You can check out the perks by clicking that little join button next to subscribe, next to the channel here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. And you'll get a rundown of some of the perks. But certainly it's another means of being able to support the work going on here, this channel. And I'm just telling you this right now, folks. Have a really exciting announcement. At least it's exciting to me about the future of this channel, the immediate future over the next few months. I'm going to be releasing that here in the coming week or so, but exciting, good news about the channel for the next few months. That's all I can say right now. I think all of you fans will be, whether you're a football fan or a basketball fan, you'll be pleasantly, you'll be pleased with this news. So I'll be sharing that with our folks here in the coming days. But again, hop on to be a member as Tony did. And again, thank you, Tony, for your support. I want to just say hi to everybody who's here in the chat, who has, again, been patient. Just so you're aware, because I started late, I was not able to, run through the typical social media routine. So please help out. Please share the show out on social media. Encourage others to join. If you're enjoying the content, certainly others will as well. And I'm going to, real quickly, as we're waiting for our phone line to potentially light up, and here it comes. I'm going to share this out on social media. So let's get to our first caller who has been patient and waiting for the show to launch along with everyone else. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Are you there, Corey?
Yes, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, how you doing, Corey?
Good. Who's this?
This is Ryan up in McGregor, Iowa. How are you? Haven't talked to you in a while.
I'm doing great, Ryan. I think I remember you, but it's been a while, and you're going to have to remind me where McGregor is.
It's right on the Mississippi River, across the river from Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. So
okay.
we're up here in the northeast quadrant of Iowa. It's quite beautiful, and the fall colors are happening, and this is going to be a grand weekend up here. So anyway, come and visit. It's a nice place.
Absolutely.
I'm calling about the Hawks. They've mystified me like they have you and all the other callers. And I'm reading the comments that are flowing on by, and it's a very difficult thing to try to put your finger on exactly. I was hoping Coach Patterson would be around, because I was really wanting to discuss with him something that I think is the primary problem, but I'll share it with you, and hopefully, are you there, Corey?
Yep, I'm just listening.
And so I thought what I would do is just share it with you, and then let you share it with Coach Patterson.
Sure, absolutely. Be happy to.
I think that Kirk is an outstanding head coach, and I think that the basic plan that he's put in place for winning at Iowa has been a great plan for Iowa, considering our demographics and our makeup of our state, and the fact that we've won with a good mix of Iowa kids and some out-of-state kids that have bought into the system. And I think it's about as good as it can get at Iowa. I really do. And I think the NFL results of the Iowa players have demonstrated that. And I think they're pretty solid in the kicking game and the defensive side of the field. And of course, everybody is concerned about the offensive side of the field and how things are manifested there, and that's not so good. And I really wondered a lot about whether or not the playbook is archaic. We're too predictable. It seems like we don't even need a playbook. We run virtually the same plays over and over again. And I know that Coach Ferentz has that kind of Woody Hayes mentality, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and doesn't like to throw, and he's very conservative. But he has been balanced over the years, and it wasn't quite so bad under O'Keefe as it has been with Brian. And there's absolutely no doubt about that. But the thing that I think is the biggest problem that I see with the Iowa offense is that they have no contingency plans. And by that, what I mean is they don't know how to manage the game. They don't know how to manage situations in a game that don't necessarily mean that you have to add new plays, but that you have to understand the plays you're going to run for the situations that you're encountering. And I'll give you a couple examples, and then this will make sense and I'll shut up. But let's just say you're backed up against the goal line, your own goal line, and there's an offense that you need to run for that. And that good teams that are well coached have an offensive plan for going about attacking that problem. Then the other side of the ledger is a contingency plan for getting in the red zone. The closer you get to the goal line, the safeties become linebackers, and you've got to change your offensive philosophy to adapt to the situation on the field. And I don't see us doing that. We seem to not have any contingency plans whatsoever. And the ones that are probably the most frustrating to me, and I'll bet they're frustrating to a lot of the people listening to this, is when you see Iowa at the end of a half, and even if they have a lead or they're behind, and they get the ball, let's say, on their own 40, and they could run maybe 2 or 3 more plays, and they just kneel down, and they're content, and they go tra-la-la into the locker room. They don't have a contingency plan, for trying to run a 30-yard play that might give them an opportunity to put a field goal on the board before the half, something like that. But I see a real lack of vision on the offensive side for contingency planning and game management, and it clearly falls on Brian. I don't think that he's paid his dues enough by getting experience in other programs and other places to really warrant being a D1 offensive coordinator. I just don't think so. And I think he needs to go to the D3 level and demonstrate some competency there and earn his stripes like his dad did and most of the other coaches on the Iowa staff have. And that's the end of it. That's all I've got to say.
Well, I appreciate your perspective, Ryan, and you're not alone in feeling that way. And I've been very outspoken about it. And this is if you've listened, if you watch the show, you know that specifically this Hawkeye Hangout live show is designed to get you, the caller, involved and kind of let you run this thing in a sense. And so I'm happy to go wherever you and the rest of the callers want to go, but. I do feel like we beat this dead horse over and over again. You know that I've been very outspoken about Brian's lack of credentials. He doesn't have credentials to be a Big Ten offensive coordinator. He doesn't. And he never did.
He does not. And I mean, I think Kirk is trying to, jump the gun with Brian a little bit. I mean, it's great that, he's wanting his son to have an opportunity at coaching. I get all that. And, I mean, he has worked with Bill Belichick and he has done some things, but I do think, he's kind of
he's worked with Bill Belichick because his dad is Kirk Ferentz, though. So
yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. It's privilege, and so
yes,
and I don't know. I don't know if there's resentment on the team towards Brian for that or whatever. I don't know, but the thing is, I just don't think that Brian is competent as offensive coordinator, and that's not to say that someday he won't be, or that someday he might make an outstanding head coach, maybe even at Iowa. Who knows?
Sure.
But
maybe.
But he definitely is not qualified to be offensive coordinator at this time. And I say that not just because of the conservative nature of the Iowa offensive playbook, but because of his ability to not have contingency planning. In general, he doesn't manage the game as an offensive coordinator. And that's what I wanted to talk to Coach Patterson about is as an offensive coordinator, how much contingency planning, do you have? And Coach Fry had a ton of it, and Bill Snyder had a ton of it. And, but I don't see that. I see Iowa as very one-dimensional, in their thinking. They're not grasping situational coaching, situational play calling. It's just not there. And I know that none of these things are a quick fix, and I think we're kind of stuck this year. I don't think there's any quick fix to the problem at Iowa, but and I'm sure Kirk is aware of all this. I know he is, and I'm sure it weighs heavy on him. But
well, you could say it weighs heavy on him, Ryan, but I mean, I have a hard time feeling sorry for Kirk when he's had opportunities.
I'm not saying that, but I just think that he has a lot vested in the program, and he doesn't want this to be
no,
how it's playing out. He doesn't want this. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. It's got to be bothering him. You can see it almost on his face. It's starting to wear on him. It's obvious. It's working away. It's taking its toll on him. And I was just thinking about all these coaches that I really loved and respected, like Woody Hayes, how he went out, slapping a player, or Joe Paterno, going out, somebody I really respected, and has an issue with Jerry Sandusky, and of course all that drama. And I just hate to see nepotism be the way, Kirk Ferentz ends and goes out. And, he's done too good a work at Iowa to go out like this. And I understand the frustration the fans have, but I don't know the answer, but I just know that Brian does not grasp what's going on. And so that I just wanted to know from Coach Patterson's point of view, how much contingency planning can you do with the time that you have, the players you have, and, just the practice time that you have. I mean, you're regulated a lot, to how much of this you can do. So,
well, Ryan, we're live with Coach Patterson every Saturday. Feel free to call in after the game Saturday.
I will. I listen to you after those games, and I love his perspective. And I don't want to also put him in the spot. I mean, he he likes Kirk, and he's sensitive to having been a coach and knowing failure. I mean, he's seen all sides.
And Ryan, I think it's funny when you have listeners that say, shame on not many, but you'll have listeners that come along and say, well, shame on Coach Patterson for not saying what he thinks. First of all, Coach Patterson does say what he thinks, and if he seasons what he says with salt, what do you want him to do? You want him just to completely rip into a good friend of his and Kirk Ferentz, who is a good person? You want him to just completely destroy him on the show? He's not going to do that because he's a gentleman, and he shouldn't do that.
Absolutely not. No, he's not going to. And I mean, and he shouldn't. And it wouldn't be fair either. And it wouldn't. He's a man of class. I mean, Don's got class. I mean, he always has. And
yes,
class
he has.
act. And there's just no reason. It's not called for. But I think the thing is, that he also understands offensive football. He knows how to plan practice, what types of things you can or cannot do with the time that you have to account for contingencies that arise during the course of a game. I just think that that it's hard for us to know because we don't have enough access to Iowa's practices to really know what's going on. Everything has been so hidden from us, and this started with Coach Fry and has extended it, to Ferentz. And then really the other thing is, I think a lot of the people personally, are almost gagged. I mean, I was kind of wondering why you weren't on tonight. I thought, well, maybe Gary Barnum managed to shut you down. That's what I was thinking.
Jeez. That'd be the day.
I'm like, because it seems like they have a choke collar on everybody else, and nobody else is allowed to really say what they think. And I got that from Coach Fry. I mean, he didn't want anything negative said of the team. You could never bash individual players. That was one of his rules. If you win, the players get the credit. If you lose, the coaches take the credit, and you don't get any ahead by being negative. And I got that. So I try to respect Coach Fry, in his memory and his legacy by honoring that, and would hope Iowa fans would too. But anyway, that's it.
I'm pretty sure, Ryan, that Kirk and I aren't tight, but we've met on several occasions, and he knows who I am because I do the show with Coach Patterson, and again, he talks with Coach every week, and they meet every week to talk analytics. So I know Kirk knows who I am. Not that I, care that he cares who I am really, but my point is, if he does hear what I say, I'm sure he doesn't like it, but who am I? I mean, he doesn't. I mean, he's got bigger fish to fry than some guy on YouTube. But yeah, you're right. He probably doesn't like what I say, but I don't care. I mean, I like Kirk Ferentz. I like you insinuated. I think the bigger thing is to be objective, and there's not a ton of objectivity out there anymore.
That's why I tune into you, Corey, because I mean, I love what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. And I really loved, like the comment you made to the Michigan guy, after the Michigan game, who thought we were all being a little too hard on our coaching staff, and you put it in perspective. And I agreed with you, and you did that brilliantly, by the way. And that's the thing, So I'm just sitting here, and I can't figure this offense out. I mean, it mystifies me. There was a few years ago, and I don't remember the year and which team it was specifically, but we had a real problem on offensive line. It was really unstable for like the first 3 or 4 games. And then I believe they moved Brian Ferentz to the center position, and things calmed down because he understood the calls that you need to make as a center in our offensive line schemes. And it gelled that unit, and they became a pretty good football team. At first, I thought maybe it was that, and just the loss of Tyler Linderbaum was so severe on this team that they couldn't get any continuity. They couldn't function as a unit. But I don't know. It's deeper than that. it's not just that, but it's more difficult this time around. It's not a quick fix.
No, I appreciate everything you said, Ryan. And like I said, feel free to call in Saturday. I'll definitely forward on what you said. And I know Coach Patterson tries to catch these shows when he can. So I'll definitely speak with him, but feel free to call in Saturday. I know he'd love to hear from you.
Have a good night, and thank you, fans, for putting up with me. We'll see
Thank
ya.
you, sir. Appreciate it. Absolutely. Appreciate everybody being here. And Joseph. All right, to our caller that just called in and hung up. I was trying to answer. Okay, let's try again with it. We got a different caller calling in here. Caller, I'm going to put you on hold here. So Joseph. I love you, Joseph. I know you're in the chat a lot. So he's quoting me. Coach Patterson says what he thinks. Then I proceed. Now he's not quoting me. He's summing me up here, right? He's paraphrasing. Then proceeds to tell us why Coach P doesn't actually say what he thinks. That's not what I said. Coach Patterson does say what he thinks. What I said is he seasons his words with salt, right? That's called being tactful, and that's what Coach Patterson is. Now, some people don't like that. I am less tactful as it relates to criticism on here. I try to stay respectful. I still think there's a line you don't cross because I do believe that Kirk has earned the respect of criticizing fairly and politely at times. But I don't think there's anything wrong with strong criticism. What I'm saying about Coach Patterson is that he does season his words with salt. He's a gentleman, and I do appreciate that about Coach Patterson. I get that some people want him to rip into Kirk, viciously, and that's just not going to happen. But he is objective, and he's not going to say anything he doesn't feel. Let's get to our next caller who has been on hold here in StreamYard. It's Mike, Michigan Mike, as we call him here. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, how's it going, Corey?
I'm hanging in there, and it was not you. I see you commented here about last show. No, it was a different Michigan fan that called in and compared my thoughts to the let's see, who did he compare them to? Man, my mind is blanking. Who's the Michigan coach? Lloyd Carr. He compared the situation with Kirk to potentially the situation in Ann Arbor with Lloyd Carr. But Kirk Ferentz has been here a lot longer than Lloyd Carr was ever at Michigan, and so it's just a different situation all around. I understood the comparison, but I don't. Lloyd Carr's downfall wasn't nepotism.
No, it definitely wasn't nepotism. It was just, I think he's just the typical Michigan coach. We're kind of like you guys were. We're the old, 3 yards in cloud of dust that Bo kind of championed, and just kind of, went from there. And Harbaugh's cut from the same cloth, and that's, I'm not sure you're up on the Michigan chat, but we are not happy with Harbaugh because we're getting all these games where we get like we were ahead 20-0 in the third, and he just went off the gas completely, and it ended up being 27-14.
20-0 in the third. What did you expect them to do against the Iowa defense? Did you expect them to put up 50? You do realize that the Iowa defense is elite, right? Like, I understand what you're saying. They put up 20 points in the first half. Wait, it wasn't 20. Was it 20 in the first half, or was it 13
at the half? 13-0 at the halftime, 20-0 in the third, and then pretty early in the fourth, you got 27.
So wait, no, it wasn't early in the fourth. It was at the very end of the fourth. What are you talking about? It wasn't early in the fourth.
It was 20-0 at the end of three, and then 30 seconds later into the fourth quarter, it was 20-7. Then we came back at 27-7. Then towards the end, the garbage time touchdown.
Well, but the 20, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last touchdown for Michigan was scored towards the end of the fourth, correct?
I think it's 5-6 minutes left.
Okay, well, that's not beginning of the fourth.
No, you guys scored at the beginning of the fourth.
Right.
It was 20-0, then 20-7, 30 seconds into the fourth.
What I'm saying, Mike, is what did you expect the Michigan offense to do?
I expected a little bit more than that. We had McCarthy just wasn't playing good. He tried deep. I'm trying to think, it was
he had one overthrow.
And it was barely an overthrow. But he didn't push down the field, and that's a lot of the complaints that the Michigan guys are having. It's like there's absolutely no vertical game, and your secondary is good, but it can be had. And we got a lot of speedsters on our team, and we're just kind of wondering why Harbaugh is going, this really generic, vanilla, conservative game plan. Corum doesn't need to be running 30 times a game. We're worried that he's going to get kind of burned out whenever the season, starts picking up, and we got to go against Penn State and the Nuts and all these guys, and we're worried that we're just kind of running out of gas because Corum's going to be all bruised up. Stokes isn't getting worked in as much. Edwards is already hurt. We're kind of worried that there's this prolific passing game that he's just not utilizing whatsoever. And I'm on Rick for saying that I don't know how good your defense is, to be honest. Because we're so conservative in our offense. Between our dueling offensive coordinators, that we don't know how good our offense is either.
Well, but how good, Mike? What's Iowa's reputation? How good is Iowa's defense? How good is Iowa's defense on a typical year?
On a typical year, they're top notch. I'll give you that one.
Okay, it's usually top 15, top 20. So I mean, I think we can assume, regardless of competition so far, Michigan played a really good defense on Saturday. And let's not overstate what teams can do against Iowa's secondary, because Phil Parker rarely is going to give you man coverage, right? He's going to drop back in that zone and let you take. I thought J.J. McCarthy played a masterful game because he took what the defense gave him. And heading into the game, Mike, remember I told you what was the key? I'm going to test your knowledge of my channel.
Oh,
what
man.
was my key for both teams, or specifically for Michigan? What was my key for Michigan to beat Iowa on Saturday? Do you remember?
Was it the turnover?
No, it was not taking unnecessary shots. And guess what? Michigan did that. They did not take unnecessary shots. They played it. I want to say you called it vanilla. To me, that's what you do against an Iowa team that has no offense right now. You take what the defense gives you. That's exactly what McCarthy did. You don't take unnecessary shots down, especially trying to go over the top. And I think the one big difference in this game, not only were they conservative in their play calling, but I don't think anybody expected Corum to run as well, because, Mike, you're not going to probably have another team. We'll see what Iowa does. Iowa's got a really good running team. I mean, Illinois knows how to run the football. So we'll see what they do this Saturday. But my point is, you probably won't see another running back go off on Iowa like Corum kind of did. How many yards did Corum have for the game?
Was like in the 130 area or something?
Let me see here. For the game, Blake Corum had 133 yards. So you're not going to have. Here's my guess. And now Braylon Allen, that Wisconsin offense is struggling mightily. Northwestern doesn't have a back that's going to do it. Nebraska's not going to do it.
Well, you still got. I mean, I don't know about Mo Ibrahim. I heard that there's rumors saying that he's gone for the season, but to my knowledge, those are just rumors.
I would still doubt that Mo Ibrahim is going to be able to rack up over 130 yards. Now, maybe one of the Ohio State guys will.
I think Travion Henderson has a chance. I'm going to say Anthony Grant has a good chance of it too. I mean, I know Nebraska's in a complete spiral, but Anthony Grant's a legitimate running back.
I guess my point is, and we're getting off subject, but my point is, I thought Harbaugh and that I thought they actually called a really perfect game. I mean, I understand Michigan fans wanting more, but boy, you just want to get out of Dodge. Going into Kinnick and playing that defense, putting up, they didn't put up a ton of points, 20 points, and then the 7 points late, so 27 on the game. That's a respectable number. They did what they needed to do. You move on. That was not the game to get cute and try taking shots down the field with JJ.
Well, I give you that, but the thing is that it seems like no game is, other than the three absolute crap teams we started the season with. But I guarantee we're going to Bloomington. We should be able to JJ should be able to throw on Indiana at will. They're terrible, and I guarantee JJ is probably going to have less than 200 yards passing that game. And then our whole base is going to go, what's the problem? Why is the offense sputtering? Why aren't we not doing anything? When this is a team we should probably, even in Bloomington, should legitimately beat by 5 touchdowns.
Well, yeah, and I can't speak to that, but if you want to say it's vanilla or not, Michigan is undefeated. So I don't think they've probably felt like they've needed to get cute. And if they need to start being more aggressive over the top with JJ and they feel comfortable doing that, I'm sure they'll pull that out against Ohio State. They'll pull it out against Penn State. Those games are all in front of Michigan on the schedule.
But that's the worry though, that you're not going to get kind of banging off the rust on this offense so that, whenever it comes to time where JJ's going to have to make plays to win the game, he's just not going to have an experience. He's just going to be too bottled up. So at the time when we need him, he's going to be out of sync, out of rhythm. We've already got problems with our, him building up a little bit of a synergy with our wideouts, because we've got wideouts that, actually, this is the first year I've known for a while where he had legitimate speed at wideout, and we have all these weapons, and Harbaugh doesn't seem to want to pull the trigger, and it's just frustrating to our fans.
I get you, Mike.
But I wanted to see if we could do it against an Iowa defense, because if we can do it against an Iowa defense, like I said, I'm not saying that this is going to be a top 5 defense in the nation. Jury still on that one. But if we can do it against Iowa, we can do it against Penn State and Ohio State and the teams that we need to do it against. So I kind of just wanted to use Iowa as a litmus test.
I get you. We'll see. I mean, like I said, when do they get Penn State? When is Penn State coming up in the schedule?
I want to say late this month. Maybe.
Okay. So, yeah, that's probably, and Michigan State doesn't look like much of a challenge. I'll be interested to see what Michigan does in that Rutgers game. When do they play the Scarlet Knights?
Oh, I'd have to pull that up. We usually play.
Rutgers defense is good. I mean, I know that Iowa moved the ball on them at times, and I know Ohio State moved the ball, but it's Ohio State. I still think that's a decent Rutgers defense. So games like that, is that game in Piscataway or is that in Ann Arbor?
Let me pull it up now. I can't seem to get it. Oh no, it's in Piscataway, but
there you go. Yeah, that's a challenge.
I don't really think location really matters, because we're not too far removed from us going there and hanging a 78 piece on them. Now, I know there's different teams, but
it's a very different team. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, all our games, look winnable. I mean, we have, the Penn State, and we get Illinois too, but we get them in the big house. And, I'm kind of curious as to see what Bielema can do against us.
What am I hearing? Are you playing some video game in the background? What's going on here?
Oh, that's my alarm. At 10 o'clock at night, I usually do a little workout before bed, but I decided to come here instead.
Right, Mike, do me a favor, do the workout. It's health is better than chatting with me.
Yeah, I give you that. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and do a quick workout while you get to talk to some of the Iowa guys.
Yeah, keep the stream going, and we'll chat with you maybe Saturday.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
Sir. All right, let's get to our next caller who's been on hold. But actually, before we get to our next caller, I'm behind on the chat. I want to give a shout out to some people. First of all, Hawk Mama, one of the better usernames here on YouTube. She is now, she's a she. Hawk Mama is a she. Appreciate you becoming a YouTube member. As I said earlier in the show, you can become a member by hitting the join button next to subscribe here on the channel. Hear from the Hawkeye of the Storm and get some cool perks, including early access to select videos. Again, it's another way to support the work going on here. And folks, I don't want to keep trying to build anticipation, but I am excited about giving you some news on the coming months. And I did see a comment from someone about from Tony, one of our other new subscribers. He said, thanks. Looking forward to the basketball content as well. I think you're going to be quite excited about that, Tony, here in the coming weeks. So some record predictions. I see that Danimal, one of our premium members, says, bowl eligible, do you think? And yes, that is kind of the theme of today's show. Can they make a bowl game? Well, the answer is yes, of course they can. But we're going to look at the schedule a little bit later in our show. And I think they're closer to being in danger of not making a bowl than to winning the West. And I don't think that's really, to me at this point, I know the West is down. I think there's a better chance they don't make a bowl than win the West. Now, that could change in the coming weeks. I could certainly change my mind based upon how teams across the division are playing. But I still think it's going to be very, very difficult for Iowa to overcome this schedule. And it's more likely that they get gotten by a team like Illinois, certainly Purdue on the road, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio State, etc. Boy, the losses could rack up. Not saying they will, but it's certainly a possibility. Let's get to our next caller here. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
It's James again. What's up, Corey? How you doing?
Good, James. How are you?
I'm good. One question I really had is, I think it's like the bowl prediction, like the whole thing. My question was like, if we don't make a bowl game this year, do you think there's going to be like 100% change? What I mean by that is like a change at somewhere, like not talking about right in general, but like some sort of change.
Yeah. Well, if we don't make a bowl, so we're talking 5 and 7, right?
Yeah, like 5 and 7 or less, obviously. But I think 5 and 7 at the worst is probably what is more likely.
Well, there wasn't. There weren't. What significant changes were made from 2012 to 2013? There really weren't many. I mean, they stuck with Greg Davis as the offensive coordinator. James Vandenberg, of course, graduated, so they had a change at quarterback. I think you're going to have a change at quarterback next year, regardless of what Petrus does. I don't see Petrus coming back here for another year, and I would like to think. I don't see him coming back. I don't even want to speculate if he does. I don't think he's going to come back. Maybe he'll grad transfer somewhere else. But yeah, I think there will likely be some changes. At the minimum, there's going to be a quarterback change. And I don't think, Brian, if this offense is, and we talked with Mark the other day, James, you probably heard our conversation with Mark Rogers. I don't foresee a scenario where Iowa gets better than maybe 110 in total offense at this point. I mean, mathematically, it's not. I'm not saying it's impossible, but boy, it's pretty unlikely that they're going to be able to climb that far up in the rankings. And I know those rankings are just one metric, but my point is, this is going to be on the resume, and I just don't know how they bring Brian back. I just don't. Do I think he's going to get fired? No. But man, I'd like to think they figure out a way to part ways and maybe get Brian. Kirk helps Brian find a job in the league. We'll see what happens with this lawsuit. If this lawsuit ends up going to trial, man, it makes it even more difficult. But no, I think there will be changes if they go 5 and 7.
I agree. I was just trying to get like what your feeling was on that. One thing I kind of thought weird from Saturday today, I didn't really bring up last time, was like, okay, so Terry Roberts dressed, right? I didn't see him play at all, but he dressed, right? So obviously that means, I think he played some special teams, didn't he? I think I saw him in a punt.
That's a good question. While you're talking, I'll look up the participation chart from Saturday.
My question is, like, if he played on punt, obviously he's a little healthy. Why was he not on the depth chart at all? I guess the depth chart doesn't mean anything, but that's kind of why I'm kind of questioning. You know what I'm saying? Like, did he re-aggravate something, or like, cause like he played a little bit. I saw him on at least one punt. I know for sure because I was watching with my friend. And he says, "Why is Terry out there on punt and not like playing corner at all?" Which we kind of thought was weird. But then, like, why is he not on the depth chart at all?
Well, there is such a thing as being limited. I mean,
True.
you can be active. It's like in the NFL. You can be active, but you might have a snap count limit, so to speak. According to, yes, just to confirm what you said, I just want to confirm this. So according to he definitely he played. He's listed on the participation chart report.
Yeah, I thought I saw him out there on punt. I just didn't know, like, if maybe his injury is still nagging or whatever. I just didn't know, like, why he wouldn't have been in the depth chart at all, which obviously I think young guys are going to be good. I don't watch a lot of Illinois. I think they run more than they pass, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Chase Brown has been terrific this year, and DeVito's been good too. But no, they're a run-first offense. And no surprise with who their head coach is.
Yeah. So I don't feel like our corners are as, like, obviously they're a big deal. Like, obviously, Gene or Moss, but I don't feel like it's going to be as big of a game as, like, one or the other, because I think like they're going to try to do kind of an Iowa, if that makes sense, with Bielema being there, just run it and try to get the run game to open up the pass game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I see a lot of that. I think that's what Bielema kind of always has done when he was at Wisconsin.
So
to Arkansas, but that's SEC. But
James, let me just ask you this: are you predicting a win or a loss on Saturday?
See, I want to say win, but like I've always told you, I've been preaching this, that like I feel like to make change, we need to lose, if that makes sense. And I don't want to like say I want to lose. Obviously, I want to win. I've always said this, but like to get change, like to get what we need to be done, I feel like we need to lose, if that makes sense. But I feel like it's gonna be a good game no matter what. I think if Iowa wins, obviously it's gonna be like 3 points at most. for to like.
So
say,
will they
you know,
win or will
because
they not win?
I'm gonna say yes because we beat them so many times.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
If that makes sense, like we kind of understand the track record of beating them. And yes, they didn't have Bielema last year when we played them because he had COVID or whatever last year when we played him at Ankeny. But I want to believe they will just because they beat them already so many times before. If that makes sense.
Sure. Well, let's just not forget, James, how many times had Iowa beaten Iowa State heading into this year?
You're right. I mean, you're right. You're not wrong about that. But Kimball's also been there longer, but Bielema's also played Iowa a lot. So it's a lot of different things. And I think Bielema, obviously, with the whole him playing at Iowa thing, is going to be more motivation for him.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm
No,
saying?
he's
Like,
motivated to win this game.
him.
Absolutely. I mean, he's
And
making
then
an effort. He's like a salesman out there making an effort to get that stadium packed. I'd kind of be frustrated if I'm Brett Bielema because you can kind of see the upward trajectory of that program, and fans aren't coming to the games. But yet you see Brett's attitude. It's okay. We got to do more to get these fans here, give them more incentive. And I don't know how full that stadium is going to be, but no, there's plenty of motivation from Brett's point of view to win this football game.
I've seen their tweet about trying to get tickets sold for the student section. So I know it wasn't like all the way sold out. They still have a lot of seats left. But one thing I want to say too is I seen Iowa's 3.5-point underdog. Do you think that's like a fair number? I know you're not like into betting or anything like that.
Sure.
But like, do you think that's a fair number?
Yeah. I mean, why not? It's about kind of how I see it, honestly. I mean, I haven't came out with my official prediction, but I'll come out with that tomorrow, and you'll see exactly what I mean. I think that's a very fair line. Why not?
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I was just trying to see how you're feeling. Obviously, as we know, the defense will hold their ground. Like I say, I see people a lot of times. Like, I'm not trying to hate anybody in the chat. Obviously, everybody has their own opinion. And I understand why everybody has their own opinion. But like, I see all these people like 23. Like Iowa scores like 7 points. I don't ever really foresee Iowa scoring over like 13 to like 17. I think like we have to keep it offense under that number for us to win, if that makes sense. Unless we get turnovers, obviously, but like without turnovers.
And let's not forget that the one game that Illinois lost this year was to Indiana, and they turned the ball over 4 times against the Hoosiers. That's the only reason they lost. So
yeah,
Illinois has proven they will give a game away by means of turnovers, and if anybody's going to force turnovers, it's going to be the Iowa defense.
For sure, that's one thing they're really good at. But I just was seeing how you were, making sure everything was good, and I appreciate you taking my call. And we'll see how the weekend goes. Obviously, there's always a chance you can lose any game from out here. What do you think, like, Iowa's record? Do you think Iowa makes the bowl game? I mean, obviously you're saying it later, but, like, do you think they do?
I don't want to go out on a limb right now because I really have to think about that some more. But
okay.
Like I said earlier, I think there's a better chance they don't than they win the West. That's my confidence level in both right now.
Well, then let me say this too, because I think I know your answer is going to be. I think your answer is going to be you'd rather not, right? I think that's what your answer is going to be. But would you rather not make a bowl game, right, or be 6-6 and make one of the lower bowl games?
That's a good question. That's a great question, actually. I'm kind of with you to the point where if we're looking at 6-6 versus 5-7, what's really the difference? But 5-7, I think, visually looks worse, and perhaps it ignites change. Because if that makes me a bad fan, then I guess I don't want to be a good one. Because I'm thinking about the future. I don't care about a 6-6 year with a bowl trip to Detroit for the Little Caesars toilet bowl. I just don't care. So
that's what I thought. That's what I thought you would say, but I was just making sure and checking, trying to see what your opinion would be on that. But enjoy your night. Take the rest of the calls you need to take, and I'll be here. I'll be
appreciate it, James. But, thanks as always, sir.
Bye.
Let's get to our next caller here. I believe this individual has been calling in, trying to get into the live show. So appreciate you holding tight here. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you, and where are you calling from?
Gardner, Kansas, actually.
Garner, Kansas. Garner?
Actually, Gardner.
Okay, Gardner, Kansas. Okay, cool. Where's that at in Kansas? I'm curious.
It's Do you know where? I mean, it's south of Kansas City, like the main city.
Okay.
I run a small oil field out here, but grew up in Iowa. Big fan. I had a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that this year's performance so far affects Caden Proctor from possibly decommitting from Iowa, being a 5-star?
No.
No.
I don't in any way. No, I'm not worried about that at all. I just, and maybe that's dumb of me, but I just don't see I don't think he's based on a bad year. I mean, let's remember how bad the offense was last year. He's no fool. He's a very smart individual, and certainly his parents who were helping him in the process understood and understand the challenges that the offense was faced with heading into this year. I mean, they were 123 in total offense last year. They won, again, I don't think they're fools. They understand that they won a lot of games last year in spite of the offense, in spite of line play. And I think Caden Proctor's attitude is, I can come in here and help this team win. And regardless of if Iowa is, puts out an acceptable offense when he's here, I think he still realizes, look, I'm going to have a chance to go to the NFL as long as I work hard, because that's what Iowa does, regardless if their lines are really good. I mean, look at last year. Tyler Linderbaum, maybe the best player, certainly one of the best linemen in college football. And, I think he's starting for the Ravens right now, despite the offense being terrible. So I don't think there's a direct correlation between Iowa's offensive success and whether or not Caden Proctor rethinks his decision. I think the thing a fan should be more worried about is if he starts second-guessing his decision to turn down 6-7 figures. If Alabama comes back and says, okay, we offered you $1 million, but what if we give you $2 million a year? I don't think it's going to happen, and maybe that wouldn't affect him, but that would be the thing I'd be more concerned with, because I've seen so many guys on, especially the basketball side of things, but certainly it's happening with football too, that end up leaning a different way because of NIL, which I was sort of behind on. So on the record prediction note, on the record prediction side of things, Danimal says 5-7 is a fair prediction. That might be a bit on the low end, but boy, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. If you look at every game that Iowa has left in the schedule that's very much losable, yeah, they could lose 7 total. They've lost 3 now. You've got Ohio State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Purdue. Who am I missing there? Ohio State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Purdue. I know I'm missing somebody in there. But that's, 4 right there, plus the 2 you've already lost. There's 6 losses. And then, yeah, you got Northwestern, Illinois, and Nebraska. I mean, Illinois is favored this weekend. So those are honest assessments. And I'm not going to go out on a limb and say they're going to be 5-7, Danimal, but I appreciate where you're coming from. Courtney still says 8-4, so she's got some positivity left in her. Tony, 6-6 for Tony. Very fair prediction. In answer to Danimal's question earlier, I don't know that I'm a big tech guy, but in relation to the issues we were having earlier, there's not much I can do when YouTube and StreamYard decide to crap out on me. So I'm just glad we got it launched. James says no way we go 8-4. No way we go 8-4. So not so positive from James. Brandon, does Petrus return next year? And if he does, why? I think I answered that question earlier, Brandon. No, I don't believe he comes back next year. And frankly, I don't think it'd be in his best interest. I think, honestly, Petrus would probably do well to either, I don't want to speak for him, but either get a jump on his career or maybe go somewhere else and look to develop at a smaller school or somewhere where he can, I hate to say this, but get more of a support from his fan base, because I think a lot of the fans have basically given up. And that's unfortunate. I'm not talking about them on the team. I'm talking about on him. And that's unfortunate. I don't think it's fair to him. Coaches have put him out there week after week, and this resentment from a lot of people in the fan base has just simply grown. So, no, I don't think he comes back, Brandon, and I just don't see that as being a real viable option at this point. Chad wants Paul Chryst as the offensive coordinator in 2023. Certainly is a QB's guy, but remember, his QB's guy is now Iowa's QB's guy to some extent, John Budmeyer. Don't see much effect there, but that makes you wonder, when Budmeyer was at Wisconsin, how much was Budmeyer actually involved and how much was Paul Chryst involved? Those are questions that we'll never have answered. Good to see you here, Brian. Brian says, you asked the question of Iowa scoring in the first possession of the game coming out of halftime. Only game with a score like that was the ISU game, aided by a blocked punt by our D. Yeah, you're right. Iowa, and typically the Iowa defense, which is weird. If you go back to last year, Iowa sometimes struggles on opening drives. They struggled against Michigan on Saturday. It's an electric Michigan offense. But even last year, go back to the Illinois game last year. Brandon Peters and that Illinois offense marched right down the field and scored a touchdown on the Iowa defense. Sometimes it takes Iowa's defense time to get going. But boy, when you have a very slim to almost no margin for error for this team in general, boy, it hurts when you give up that opening touchdown. Even if it's the only touchdown you give up all game, we know Iowa's track record. There's no guarantee Iowa's going to be able to score a touchdown itself. So fair point. Cole says, what other games did I watch last weekend? Well, Cole, I'll say this. I honestly, when Iowa has an early game, like the 11 a.m. game they had on, there's 12 noon Eastern, the game they had on Saturday, I have a hard time watching too many games. By the time we get done with the post-game show, it's pretty late. Now, I got some of the late window games. I'm trying to figure out what I watched last week. What I end up doing a lot, Cole, is going back and watching condensed versions of, Illinois, Wisconsin, trying to think Rutgers, Ohio State. And typically I'm feasting my attention on other Big Ten games. If you're wondering if I watched the Nebraska-Indiana game, I saw part of it. And I did see I am impressed. I'll say this. I was impressed with the fan support, despite everything going on in that program right now in Nebraska. Boy, they celebrated. And let's be honest, the team, I saw some footage. It looked like the team had won a national championship. And that's a good sign if you're a Nebraska fan. It looks like right now they've got a head coach, at least their interim coach is a guy who's lit a fire under his guys. So that's a positive thing if you're a Nebraska fan. Not sure if that will translate into enough wins to make them sold on him being the coach of the future, but certainly a good sign for early October. Hawkeye Howard is here, one of our premium members. Good to see you here, sir. John Buckeye. Thank you to John Buckeye, another guy. I don't believe we got to give him a shout out because he subscribed or I should say joined as a premium member kind of away from our live streams, not during a live stream. So, John, thank you for becoming a premium member. He says the Big Ten West stinks. Better hope USC gets out of in the East of its lights out for the better. Let's see. Better hope USC gets out in the East of its lights out or its lights out for all these old school ideas. Yeah, I don't think divisions are going to stay the same, John. I don't think we're going to see. I don't think the Big Ten is just going to add USC and UCLA to a particular division. I think we're going to get to see a whole new system, whether it be pods or no divisions. I have no idea what the Big Ten is going to do with that situation. Robert, one good thing I've seen is we're trying to throw deep more to loosen things up. I'm trying to think, Robert, did they throw down the field much on Saturday, though? They did against Nevada. I still think they need to attack down the field more because Spencer is a guy who probably his best attribute, his best trait as a quarterback is to be able to get the ball down the field and throw the deep ball. So, as I brought up to Mike earlier, if a team's sitting back in a zone, you kind of have to take what the defense gives you. And honestly, Petrus has not proven that he can consistently do that. So that makes it hard on the offense, right? Because it limits what you're able to do and what you should be able to do, like what J.J. McCarthy did against the Iowa defense on Saturday. You're not able to with a passer who's not accurate with the football. Let's get this back up here for our call-in line. If you're new to the show, this is Hawkeye Hangout, live call-in show we host each and every week. Recently, we've been doing it on Wednesday at 9 p.m. And right now, our call line is open, 515-635-1601. You can also join by video by clicking the link in the description below. Again, 515-635-1601. Brian says, you asked the question of, we already covered that question. Let's go down to Ryan here. How can we say for sure another plan couldn't or wouldn't have been better? Not even bashing Kirk Ferentz, but it's been 24 years. How do we really know what someone else could do? It's the Big Ten West. And he adds, talk about Tyler Barnes, recruiting director, and his credentials too. Crazy how all these people are the most qualified and just happen to be family. Ugly web allowed to be weaved. I understand. Now, I will say this about Tyler Barnes. He has done an exceptional job as a recruiting coordinator. Iowa's recruiting numbers have went way up as far as rankings are concerned. Now, these guys may not pan out, but Iowa's landing bigger fish, not just Proctor, not just Wampa, but landing better classes in general. Let's get to our next caller. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, this is Pat. How you doing?
Good, Pat. Is this the real Pat or is this a fake Pat? Is this a...
No, this is the legitimate Pat.
All right, legitimate Pat. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I haven't talked to you since basketball season, but
wow, has it been that long?
Yeah. I mean, I've tried to get through a few times, but you've been busy.
Well, you're through now.
Your show's growing, you know, and you know, you guys are doing a great job. So your viewership's growing, and it gets a little tougher to call in sometimes. But
well, yeah, when you gotta fight with clowns who are trying to. I guess it's a good sign that these actual people find that this show is worth enough to try to call in as I guess prank calls or trolls, whatever you want to call them. I guess that's a good sign for the growth of the channel, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, your content's great. I just, I guess the only comment that I wanted to make was this week with the Illinois game. You know, I think if Iowa can get to 21 points, I think they win. I think it'll still be a close game, but you know, maybe 4 points or less. But I think if they get to 21, they probably win. They may need some. You know, they may need some point help from the defense in order to get there. But the one thing that I'm looking for this week, and I'm not gonna spend any time bashing the offense or anything. We've been doing that for 5 weeks, but I'm just looking for some growth, you know, on the offense. I want to see, you know, just watch the offensive line close. You know, Illinois is a good team, and so we'll see see if there's some holes opening up on the offensive line. See how those guys are doing. See if Spencer can, you know, if he's getting the ball out there a little bit quicker, which, you know, he seemed to last week, but you know, they were playing some soft defense there in the fourth quarter. So, you know, Michigan kind of made him look better than, you know, he probably actually was.
Yeah, I will say this about, just to interject real quick, Pat. I just mentioned a second ago that Spencer has not been able to consistently take what the defense gives him. As you know, the defense, Michigan's defense in that second half was playing kind of an extreme, I think at times, an elevated version or extreme version of what Iowa does, kind of sitting back in that zone and playing bend, don't break style, if you will. And again, I give Spencer credit. He actually did take advantage of it to an extent, because they scored the touchdown. They came close to scoring another touchdown. So he was better when the pressure was not on. He's still not proven that he can make the throws when the pressure's on. That's the problem. I mean, lots of guys can make the throws. I think Alex Padilla's proven he can make those same throws. But the question is, who's going to make throws when the pressure's on? And you make a good point. I mean, but Iowa, you know, maybe the magic number is 21. But I'll tell you this, Pat, Illinois only scored under 21 one time. They scored 20 against Indiana, and that was when they turned the ball over 4 times. There's a good Illinois rush offense, and Iowa did get gashed at times by the Michigan rushing attack on Saturday. So I hope you're right, but if they're going to hold them under 20, you're probably going to have to figure out a way to hold Chase Brown to, at least 100 yards or less.
Yeah, I think, you know, they're going to have to the offense is going to have to do everything that they can to keep the defense off the field. You know, you can't have the defense on the field for 40 minutes or 42 minutes. That's not going to work. And if that happens, they probably lose the game. But I think that if they, you know, Illinois, yeah, I realize, you know, they've been a pretty high scoring offense this year, but you know, they haven't played Iowa's defense either. And I just think 21's the number. I think if Iowa can get there, I think they win.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. And let's be honest, Iowa, how many times has Iowa reached 21 this year?
Have they reached? Well, yeah, you know, give them the Nevada game.
Rutgers
and Rutgers. Yeah.
But remember, the defense scored 14 points against Rutgers. So,
right.
So you're saying if they hold So in other words, as long as Iowa can score 21, basically is what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good prediction. Like I said, I haven't come out with my score prediction yet, but I mean, I know that Illinois hasn't played Murderers Row, but they've played Wisconsin, Indiana, and Virginia. So 3 Power 5 teams, Pat. And
Right.
did you see my preview earlier today where I ran through some of the rankings for Illinois defensively?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I mean, right now they're tops in almost every category. I mean, it's incredible what Brett's done so far. Again, they haven't played necessarily the big boys, although who would have thought they'd hold Wisconsin to 2 rushing yards? They have one of the best rush defenses in the country, one of the best defenses as it relates to points per game, and one of the right now maybe the best defense and best total defense as far as yardage is concerned. And I also mentioned what they've done to opposing quarterbacks. They've had 2 opposing quarterbacks put up absolutely like putrid numbers. The kid from Wyoming, and I believe the guy from maybe the guy from Chattanooga. Now I know those are not Power 5 opponents, but it's hard to hold a guy to. I mean, the guy from Chattanooga threw 6 of 18 for 49 yards and 2 picks. Defense is doing something right there.
Yeah, they're gonna, Caleb Johnson, that guy's got more potential as a freshman than any freshman running back that Iowa's had for a while. But you can't run him between the guards. That just doesn't work. He's got some speed. He's actually faster than what he looks. And,
yeah, he's got a long stride.
Yeah, get him outside the tackle box, and let him use his speed out there. But no, like I said, I think the defense is going to have to help the offense out point wise. Maybe a pick six or a scoop and score or something to give them the padded points that they may need. But I still think 21 is the number. And if Iowa doesn't get to 21, I don't think they win.
I don't disagree with you at all. And I again, without having a score prediction in mind yet, I think you're likely looking at a 21-18 type game. I don't see it being more than that. I really don't see it. I mean, I guess we could end up being, another 10-7 game, but I mean, it's becoming easier and easier for Vegas to predict the over-unders, the totals for these games for Iowa, because the offense has become pretty consistent. I mean, and not in a good way, of course, but it's pretty consistent. I mean, what have their totals been each week, Pat? I mean, 7 week 1, 7 week 2, 27 against Nevada, which was their big output, 27 against Rutgers, and 14 against Michigan, 7 of which came during garbage time. So when they've played anybody with a pulse, they've really only been able to muster up 7 to 14 points, because they scored 14 points against Rutgers on defense directly. Literally, I mean, pick 6 and a fumble 6.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm looking for growth this week, especially within the offensive line, and that's what I'm focusing on. So it's not so much whether Iowa wins or loses. They could lose and still show some growth, and that's what I'm looking for. I mean, generally, Kirk Ferentz teams, they're better in October than they were in September, and better in November than they were in October. That's just the way Iowa plays football, because they're developing players constantly. But so that's all I had to say for tonight. Corey, it's good talking to you, and I'm glad that your channel's growing. I'm glad your viewership's growing, and maybe I'll try to bounce back in, after the game.
Well, Pat, I'm assuming we're going to hear from you more during basketball season.
No, I'm a equal opportunity Hawkeye. I like it all. I just I don't know. I just had trouble getting through. Especially when you got Don on there. So yeah, and it'll be the same thing, Corey, this basketball season, because you're your viewership's growing so much. So it could be tougher to get in, during basketball season this year, and good for you. I'm happy as hell for you.
Pat, I just want to remind you, I appreciate the compliments and the challenge of being able to get in, but let's not forget the 2 callers that preceded you.
No, let's forget the 2 callers.
Okay, I just fair, ditto.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, but that's part of live call-in shows, right?
That's right. Yep.
Well,
I appreciate
it. Night, Corey.
Appreciate it, Pat. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Okay, you take care, bud.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
All right, appreciate Pat and all our actual callers who have called in this evening, and the phone line is back open for the time being. I'm sure by the time I put it up here, it'll probably be busy again, but of course you can also join by clicking the link in the description below. There should be a link after the word join, right top of the description. If you don't see it, just reload the video, go out of the video, come back in on YouTube, and you'll be able to find it. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Lemanski on the phone.
All right, Lemanski. You're legitimate. I can tell. I recognize the voice. And
I'm
nobody
glad
else
I
has ever
matured a little
tried
bit. Otherwise, you might hang up on me. I'm glad I matured a little bit.
Nobody else has tried to identify themselves as Lemanski, so I know exactly who you are, sir.
Well, I think this is going to be the most interesting weekend in the Big Ten West. We're going to learn a lot about Wisconsin and Illinois and Iowa. And I think Brett Bielema has learned a lot, just like Kirk Ferentz's early years in the pros. And they say that his Arkansas firing made him humble, and going to pros opened his eyes to modern football. So now we're going to see if the old guard, which Wisconsin decided to get rid of their old guard, which was shocking to me.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. Aren't you up in the Wisconsin area, Lemanski?
Yeah, I live pretty close to La Crosse, Wisconsin. So I've always followed the Badgers because I've followed Alvarez. Most people aren't as old and decrepit as I am, but Barry Alvarez played for Bob Devaney. So Alvarez is a Nebraska guy, and you've got Nebraska followers on your chat. So I want to give a shout out to Nebraska history. And he didn't even want to interview at Mason City High School. His wife made him. And it's funny how the paths work. And so, I hear a lot about the Badgers. I care about Alvarez. He's 75 now, and most people don't know it's his second year of advising the Big Ten commissioner. Did you know that, Corey?
Who is this again?
Barry Alvarez. He was hired to consult with the Big Ten commissioner. This is his second year.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess I did know that. I forgot. I had a conversation about that the other day. Who was I talking to? Oh, I won't say who I was talking to. I was talking to somebody who is a reputable source, and this individual was surprised. They have strong connections to that Wisconsin program, and they were surprised by the move. And I just said to him, I said, "Don't you think Barry probably had a say in this?" And they kind of felt the same way. I mean, I have a hard time seeing Chris McIntosh, the AD up there, not consulting with Barry. I mean, Barry, as you know, Lemanski, built that thing up there. And I'm surprised that Barry would give his approval, given the fact that Paul Chryst was kind of his guy. But boy, now anymore, I mean, Barry Alvarez is in the business of winning, and he always has been.
And when Bielema left Wisconsin after the bowl game, he took the Arkansas job 2 or 3 weeks later, and Barry was upset. He made that known. But it's going to be interesting because Illinois may be more modern than us. And the other thing is, I think Brett's not playing with all his players, and this is right up your alley. He went to the portal and got the Syracuse QB, and they always kind of suffered on offense, and they've got a good QB.
Yeah, very much.
And they've always played defense. and he's I worry about him because he really doesn't have his own players, and I don't think Lovey was worthless. He might have been outdated, but I don't think he was worthless, and that tells me Brett's to be feared. And also, what's interesting is that I really think Brett. I don't think Wisconsin stomached it very well, and Brett handed it to the Badgers. I'm sure Barry at 75 years old goes, he had to be consulted. I don't know if they do everything Barry says, but I'm sure Barry blessed the move. And he's probably one of the most hard-nosed assistant coaches of anybody that came through Wisconsin. I like the assistant coaches that Brett has put in place almost better than the assistant coaches that I was put in place. And I think that's a lot of college football. Leipold, brought all these guys that he's had at Buffalo. They're coaching them up at Kansas. Don't tell me they have all these great players from high school. He's coaching them up and making a difference in the Big 12, and I'm kind of wondering about Matt Campbell, where his ceiling is right now.
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. I said that same thing to Mark Rogers the other day. I don't know what Matt Campbell's ceiling is, because I think there is somewhat of a ceiling on the Iowa State program. I don't know as much about Brett's staff as obviously you do. I can say this, what he's done, and I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but the way they're winning, like Rutgers was winning and their numbers were good and they were undefeated when Iowa played them. But like Illinois is dominating teams in certain categories. Again, I'm kind of promoting my channel, but if you watch the preview that I released earlier today, Lemanski, every week they have had an eye-popping stat on defense. I mean, eye-popping. They're either making opposing quarterbacks look silly, or they're making opposing offensive lines and running backs look silly. And that, again, they've played teams that are known for, well, specifically Wisconsin. They're known for their run game, and I know they're not the same Wisconsin, but I have a hard time imagining that they've accomplished a fluky type thing defensively for 5 straight weeks. This is a legitimate defense, and I'm more apt to say that now than I was heading into the Rutgers game. I mean, we promoted that game as being a game versus two really good defenses, but we also understood Rutgers defense is good. How good, we don't know. I still think Rutgers is probably a top 50 defense. I think Illinois is, I don't think Illinois has the best defense in the country or the third best defense in the country, but it's probably a top 25 defense. Big difference between being a top 50 defense and being a top 25 defense. So, yeah, obviously they're doing something with their coaching staff. Brett's got it rolling down there, and it's not surprising. Lemanski, you follow college football enough to know when that hire initially happened. I don't know. People kind of seemed indifferent about it. Maybe I'm not listening to the right people, but I remember telling Mark Rogers, I said, I think he's going to get it done there. And they are in a great spot regionally. They've got a recruiting hotbed potentially with the city of Chicago. And I know it's been tough for kids to be attractive to the program and to Champaign, and that's only going to continue. But if anybody's going to accomplish, it's going to be Brett Bielema, and we're starting to see that happen.
Yeah, I think he forced the hand of Wisconsin to be a little, I don't know if radical is the right word, but they're worried about their future, and they made one of the biggest, boldest moves in college football that you've seen. I think it's going to be very telling to the Iowa program where we're at. Last time we talked, Corey, I told you that we had a shot at Michigan, but in the same sentence, I said we have to turn them over, and of course, there were 0 turnovers on each side, and we're going to need that again against Illinois. Interesting thing about Bill Belichick, he has what he calls the mini 8, and it's the last 4 minutes of the first half and the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. And the last time I called you, I was pretty upset because we drop off back to pass. We gave up a sack, and then our field position is shot to hell, and it's a two-score game. And then, the whole thing kind of went down a rat hole. But I think we're still relying on turnovers.
Yeah, and as I said to our caller earlier, Illinois has turned the ball over in spurts. I mentioned the Indiana game. Let's see. I'm just curious. That's a number I didn't look at. They turned the ball over against Chattanooga once, against Wyoming. They did not turn the ball over against Virginia. They, of course, dominated Virginia 24-3, but they turned the ball over 4 times. They turned the ball over, Lemanski. So, yeah, converting turnovers could easily be the big key. I mean, I said, it's what both teams do in the run game, but boy, you're absolutely onto something. And just the reputations of both these teams, the Illinois offense for turning the ball over and the Iowa defense for forcing turnovers, it makes sense.
I watched Hawk Talk tonight, and it's usually pretty boring, and I sometimes can't watch the whole thing because it's kind of softball over the place. But it's interesting tonight that Kirk was asked a question by the people listening to the show, and it was about the younger players. I'm really hoping that the guys like Aaron Graves, he was pretty positive about Aaron, which he has to be, but he's got on the field, and he kind of was very positive about Wampa getting more playing time, and he's progressing. I think we'll see Wampa on the field, not just special teams, based on just reading Kurt's lingo, because he's so tight-lipped, and he's different than Hayden was, but he's so tight-lipped not to let anything out, including his crazy depth charts don't mean anything. But I'm hoping this young talent that hasn't forced the quarterback room is going to DJ Hall, Wampa, Graves. I hope these young players kind of force the coaching staff's hand to get them on the field and seeing where we are, because we've had good recruiting. It's just that this coaching staff does not like mistakes, and they bring players along pretty slowly. So let's cross our fingers and let's hope that happens.
Absolutely. And just want to say one thing before you, and if you have something else, Lemanski, I'm happy to talk. But for the individual that made a racial comment, or I should say a racially insensitive comment in the chat, you are blocked for the next 5 minutes, and it happens again, you're going to be permanently blocked. So racism is not happening on this channel, in a live stream, in a comment, none of that. Harassment, racism, you will be blocked. And I apologize that people had to see that and that I was late to it because I'm behind in the chat. So no place for that here or anywhere. But anyways, go ahead, Lemanski.
One of the great things about Iowa is its educational system. You and I were brought up in it, Corey, in the Iowa educational system. And I think we take great pride in that we improve ourselves as human beings and not to be so narrow. I'm from a farm community and glad I went to Iowa City and was exposed to different people's backgrounds, where they were from, a lot of Illinois people went to Iowa City because of the difference in tuition. And I got to learn about, the big city college kids that went there. So we've got to take pride as Iowans in who we are and carry on our heritage. And, I think our job is to make each day a little bit better than it was before and not be part of the problem, be part of the solution.
Yep. You're right. I agree. I do appreciate there is such a thing as Iowa nice, Lemanski, but people are still people.
Yeah, I think you have to have a little pride, a little Iowa pride, and a little pride in representing your family, whether your upbringing was good or bad. But you represent more than yourself. You represent your town. You represent your mother and dad. You represent the University of Iowa. I try not to cross the line in the chat with other Big Ten fans unless I think they cross the line. But I always try to watch it that that Don Patterson would see my remark and say, that's a good Hawkeye fan, and not say that doesn't do anybody any good. And I guess I'm done talking. I want somebody else to enjoy the show. And I really like how Don Patterson there's like 10 or 12 coaches under Hayden Fry's coaching tree. And Kirk hasn't done that. There was a comparison of you put Kirk's best team against Hayden's best team, who would win? And it's a draw. It's a draw, really. But here's the difference. The Hayden Fry coaching tree and the quality of his assistants cannot be denied. And Kirk hasn't done that yet. On the offensive side of the ball, there's a lot of eyeballs nationally looking at it and say, it don't measure up in the Big Ten or national.
Well, and Lemanski, not to insult your question, but when you say, who would win between Hayden's best team and Kirk's best team? Okay, who would win between Gene Chizik's best team at Auburn and Matt Campbell's best team at Iowa State? I'm probably taking the national title Gene Chizik team against anything Matt Campbell has done, but who's the better coach? I mean, I take Matt Campbell any day of the week. So I don't think just because your reputation is top heavy that necessarily means that you're the better coach. But you're right that the coaching tree that Hayden Fry developed, and Kirk Ferentz is part of that, is unmatched, I think, by anybody. I know that there's some talk of the Nick Saban tree that hasn't materialized to a point where I think it rivals. Now I'm biased, but I don't think it rivals what Hayden was able to do. It's incredible. The guys whether we're talking about the Stoops brothers, or we're talking about Brett, or we're talking about Dan McCarney, Don Patterson, Kirk Ferentz, Bill Snyder. I mean, you just go down the list, and I know I'm missing people. It is incredible.
An interesting fact for you in the chat, if you look up the winning percentage and the career history of coaches, it's really interesting that Notre Dame has number 1 and number 2 on percentage. Newt Rocky and Frank Leahy. And I don't care for the great Ohio State coach that Mark Rogers likes to talk about, and he won a lot. He's right tucked underneath them, that kind of raised my eyebrows. But I never would have wanted him at Iowa. You were trying to teach student athletes about how they should go on in life after that, and you can't deny him winning. But I never wanted him to coach at Iowa, nor do I want him to coach anywhere else again. But Bobby Stoops, look it up. Bobby Stoops' winning percentage, career winning percentage, will make all Iowans proud. I'll hang up with somebody else. Enjoy your show, Corey.
Appreciate Lemanski as always. We'll talk to you Saturday. And yeah, great points as always. Always enjoy Lemanski's calls. Do want to get to a couple chats before we get to our final 2 callers of the night. I think we're going to try to wrap it up at our final 2 callers here. Ryan and Hawkeye Howard is on hold. We'll put our caller on hold here. Joseph, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate the support, sir. And again, if you're interested in becoming a member, click the little join button next to the channel from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Next to subscribed, click on join, and you'll be able to see some of the perks. And of course, that's your way of supporting this channel. And again, so thank you to Joseph for doing that. Appreciate the compliment from Danimal. He says, objectivity is exactly why I prefer you over everyone else. I appreciate that, Danimal. I try to be as objective as possible, even though it doesn't always sit well with some Hawkeye fans. Ryan says, dead on. Michigan dominated, got up enough to know Iowa wouldn't win. They survived and advanced. And that was kind of my point with Mike earlier. Mike, of course, is a Michigan fan, and this is an Iowa show, but I thought Michigan basically played the way they needed to play. And that was kind of how I predicted Michigan, I think, winning, what did I say, 17-15. So I predicted it'd be a 1-score game. It was a 2-score game. But the game kind of played out the way I expected, maybe minus Iowa's push there in the third. And I did not expect Michigan to run the ball as well as they did against Iowa's defense. I give them credit for that. Let's get to our next caller here. Ryan's on the phone. How you doing, Ryan?
Hey, Corey. How are you?
Doing okay.
It's a tough week for me because we're playing Illinois, and my driver's license says Illinois. I'm a very loyal guy.
Ryan, where do you live? Can I ask where you live in Illinois? I'm curious.
Roselle, Illinois, right near Schaumburg. It's a western suburb. western suburb of Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, so as a loyal guy, I guess I have to root for the Illini this week. Okay, I had to see if I could get that out with a straight face.
Yeah.
It's
I'm sure.
kind of funny. It's kind of funny. It's very Illini football fans are very quiet around here. Loads of Michigan State, Nebraska, Badgers, and you live 2 hours from Champaign, and you don't have a lot of Illinois. I mean, I felt like no buzz at all from the 3 or 4 Illinois fans that I might actually know. But anyway,
is there a lot of Northwestern fans in your area on the west side?
No, not really. Not really.
You're in the west side, though, isn't it? So, again, I'm not real familiar with the city of Chicago, but isn't Evanston kind of on the west side?
No, it's north. It's in Evanston, just directly north of the city.
Okay, is it more north? Okay.
Yeah, it's
on the lake, I know.
On the lake, 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes from the northern border of Rogers Park, Chicago.
Okay.
Probably the worst tailgating experience you'll ever find. Glorified high school stadium. But anyway.
Wait, you saw their new plans, though, Ryan? Not to change the subject. Did you see their blueprints for a new stadium?
Yeah, it's going to be small, like 35,000 maybe, which.
But it can be small, but boy, it looks nice.
It did look nice. It looked nice. I did see the blueprint. I'm more excited about the blueprints in Arlington Heights that I've been seeing, which I think is sorely needed, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
The Bears.
Right.
But yeah, regarding Illinois, I'm kind of a closet Brett Bielema fan, and that's not a joke. I loved his loyalty. Obviously, he played for Hayden. He was retained by Kirk for first 3 years in Kirk's tenure through 2001, I think. He was lights out at Wisconsin. My goodness. And I know Arkansas was kind of a tough challenge, especially in that conference. But
yes, it was. That division.
That division is really what I meant to say. You're right.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard to see why that made a lot of sense. It kind of told me he wanted to get out from Barry's thumb a little bit, would be my assumption. But I kind of laugh because I've always kind of thought Illinois will come back and be competitive again with Bielema at the helm. First interview I heard from him after he was named coach, he said one of his priorities is to recruit the state of Illinois, which makes sense, and find all those kids that grew up dreaming of playing in Memorial Stadium. And of course, I just spat my beer out at that point. I mean, who the hell grows up wishing they could play at Memorial Stadium? I mean, if I was an Illinois student, I would go study for my exam there at a football game in the years past versus I'm sure the library was much more lively. So I just kind of found that quite funny. Yeah, I know what they did to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's down, and I fell out of my chair when I saw that they fired Paul Chryst. Now, there's going to be another conversation I want to have with you in a minute about that, but I just, and maybe I'm just setting myself up for a big-time burn here, and it wouldn't shock me, but I can't take Illinois all that seriously. I mean, I know they have a much better team. Spencer does play better on the road. I don't think
that's marginal, though. I mean, let's not act like. I mean, I know you've said that. I've said that. I mean, I've made that point, and you brought it up too. But Ryan, it's marginal.
It's marginal. I mean, we're talking Rutgers versus Iowa State level, right?
Yeah.
It was an improvement, but nothing to write home about. I don't know.
The difference between 13 points and 7 points.
7. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. I don't know. I like our chances of winning this game, holding them very close. Obviously, it's going to be the same old formula: field position and pray for a defensive score. But I do kind of like our chances in kind of 17-13 kind of type of game. But I wouldn't be shocked if, we give up 20 and get 7. It's sort of like, my boss and I talk college football all the time. He's a diehard Nebraska fan, and he's actually, believe it or not, pretty Hawkeye friendly. And the one thing he knows that I harp on every year is that I never take Minnesota very seriously, and I went to the game in 2019 when they were undefeated coming into Kinnick, and we hung out L on them. And I did, and they were favored. I just don't give a lot of. It's going to take a little more for me to think of Minnesota as that upper echelon Big Ten team. What does scare me, though, getting back a little bit to Paul Chryst, is Nebraska's going to have a lot of good options to choose from. And now they might screw it up. Who knows? The word is that Wisconsin really wants Lance Leipold of Kansas, which would be interesting to see where Jim Leonard would go if that would happen. PJ has brought Minnesota up definitely a couple notches in spite of what I just said about Minnesota. They're not terrible. Now, Illinois, I think, is going to definitely be better than they've been in the past. Northwestern's Northwestern. They, Fitz can come and bite you at any time. They haven't been good.
I think they're in a rough place though right now. I don't know. This doesn't seem like the typical roller coaster. They were 3-9 last year, and they're awful this year. I think Pat Fitzgerald. I'm not saying he's in trouble. Is he going to get fired? But I wonder about the future there.
It just, when you look at your competition in the West around you, and I would agree with you that Northwestern probably is who you'd pencil in as the bottom feeder right now for the near future. But if you're not a Hawkeye fan, you're just a college football fan, and you're well in tune with the Big Ten, and you look at this landscape, Nebraska can really only go up, and they have the money. I mean, God, they have spent $65 million in coaching buyouts in the last 12 years or so, according to my boss. Minnesota, they seem to at least be on a pretty solid track. When you look at what Wisconsin did, I mean, Paul Chryst, yeah, he was down this year, but typically, 6-1 in bowl games, wins 10 games most every year, and he gets fired. I mean, I'm just telling you that this is a division that is really, really going for it. Our competitors are really going for it. Meanwhile, if you objectively look at Iowa, you got a defense that darn near needs to pitch a shutout to keep us in the game because our offense is just beyond putrid. You have a coach with a $48 million buyout, and he's older, 67 years old, under contract until he's 75, I think, 74 or 75. $48 million buyout. Objectively, you almost would have to say that Iowa looks like they're going to be just one notch above Northwestern going forward, unless something radically changes, whether that be being more open to opening up the offense and not necessarily making sure that the defense is just beyond lights out every single game. And I know I've said this at least 3 times on your show, I'm sorry, but I just, for the life of me, do not understand why this has to be mutually exclusive. It's our defense cracks, especially when they're on the field the whole time, and the time of possession is half of the other team because of all the 3 and outs. I agree with you that this punting is winning mantra is kind of a loser's mentality. Now, I understand having a Torrey Taylor is an awesome weapon. I get the field position game. I get it. But having an offense that can stay on the field for a while, move the chains, score points, doesn't even have to be 30 points, but get in the mid-20s. I'm very confident our defense can hold good teams under 20 points or at 20 points on a mediocre day, and then we can win. You look at the scores around the country, and it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. I'm not saying I want to be like the Big 12 where, you might win 45-42, but being able to consistently win a game 27-20 instead of 13-10, I get it. Winning is winning is winning. A win is a win, blah, blah, blah. But that number one, I don't understand how we're attracting recruits. In fact, and we're probably going to lose some offensive players in the portal. We've shown no real care to bring in players in the portal. And and you don't have a coach who's coaching for his life. Wisconsin showed me that, they're going to hold you accountable. How is it that Paul Chryst, who went 67-26 in 7 seasons, call it, he had a $16 million buyout that was negotiated down to 11, and our coach is more than 4 times that. Yeah. We pigeonhole ourselves something terrible, and I don't see why that is necessary. And that's not a knock on coach. Believe me, I want coach to go out on a really, really positive note. It killed me as a senior at Iowa in 1998, watching Hayden go out in a whisper, in that Minnesota game. That whole season was a disaster. And that's not how I want to remember Coach Ferentz.
Yeah, I get you, Ryan, and we're going to learn a lot here in the next few weeks, right? I mean, you lose this week and you lose next week. Guess what? You're what would be that? 3-4. I mean, things can get ugly quick. So let's just wait and see. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not fine with entertaining what's going to happen in the future, but this is a pivotal month. And in response to the comment in the chat about, see who I can, it's Brand. Brand says, Kirk Ferentz won the Big Ten last year, you idiots. I don't know who Brand's talking about, but that's precisely why I'm saying Kirk Ferentz is not on the hot seat like Paul Chryst. But Paul Chryst, they went 9-3 last year, right? So that's the standard Wisconsin apparently has set. But my point in response to Brand, yes, I agree with you, Brand. Kirk Ferentz is not on the hot seat, but Brian Ferentz should be. Brian Ferentz should not be here right now.
I think what Brand is missing is nobody is putting down the accomplishments Coach Ferentz made. Now, we had an awful big assist from Minnesota in what I thought was a pretty unlikely win. That put us standing. But we won it. We got there.
Won the West.
We got ours handed to us in the championship game, but you got to get there to lose there. And I am absolutely not. I'm more worried about the future. And yeah, things have trended down. And in college football, 1 year of trending down can be a real problem. It's not like we have dynamic young players that just need to mature more on offense. We're the talented players we do have, we don't really utilize, and it is a horrendous offensive plan. I am not at all putting down Kirk Ferentz's accomplishments. I love Coach Ferentz. I'm very happy he's our coach, but I do think he might be at a stage in life where his priorities, while they are still winning and getting as much as he can out of his players, he has other priorities too, namely taking care of Brian and making and developing the players that he has. I don't think he always makes the best personnel decisions, but it is what it is. It's not like anyone is like your comment right there. He is too old school. I know there was a person who I was talking to, I think, and they said Dominique Douglas from 2006, 2007 era, and DJK really jaded Kirk, wanting to avoid the cocky wide receiver who might get themselves in trouble. You're going to have some swagger wide receivers to some degree, because that's what wide receivers usually are. I'm not saying, Smith Marset had a little bit of swagger. Remember his last touchdown? I'm sure Kirk absolutely hated that, but you got to have that's just what a wide receiver is. I'm not saying it's a necessity. I got to make sure that you have a ton of flash and personality on the field, but playing a lot of walk-ons isn't going to attract a lot of top recruits either. And if we win with the James Vandenberg style of player, then great. But I just think the temperature has definitely been turned up in the West, with obviously the actions last year with Illinois bringing in Bielema, and then with Nebraska and Wisconsin. It does make me worry that Kirk may not be one to want to adapt. And does he have a whole lot of incentive to adapt other than his personal pride in winning? It's not like he's going to get fired anytime soon. He runs that whole ship.
Yeah, I get you, Ryan. And I got to catch you off because I got to wrap this thing up here in a couple minutes, and I got 2 people on hold. But no, I appreciate everything you're saying. And like I said, we've got a pivotal few weeks in front of us.
Yep. All right. Thanks, and go Hawks.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you, sir. All right. Caller, you're on the air.
Can you hear me?
Don't do it, buddy boy.
Hey, Corey, it's Joe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What you got, buddy boy?
I'm
giving you a chance
caller,
to have a legitimate phone call. I'm giving you one chance to have a legitimate phone call.
This is the first time I've called in.
Okay. What you got to say?
But anyways, I was going to say, on the last drive in the fourth quarter, why do you think they keep running Petrus under center and rolling him out and all in the previous games when that wasn't in the playbook at all, like 2 years ago? Like, why would they be putting him under center, rolling him out, throwing it 2 yards? I just wanted your opinion on that, or why they think that's a good idea to roll him out like that under shotgun, or not on the shotgun.
Well, that'd be a better question for Coach Patterson. I guess I didn't notice that they were doing that more than normal on Saturday. Misdirection's always good, right?
Definitely they've called it like 3 or 4 times each game, but I just don't understand why they keep doing the same thing when nothing occurs on each play.
Yeah, I get you. There's a lot of things they do that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in retrospect.
Yeah, well, anyways, thanks for calling, and have a good night.
You as well. All right. Glad we got a good call there. Appreciate that. Hawkeye Howard's here. Hawkeye Howard.
Can you hear me?
How you doing, buddy boy?
Can you hear me all right?
You're a little quiet, but I can hear you.
Okay. Well, that's good because I talk loud. So
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. Well, what I'm calling in is we ain't got a chance this weekend, guys. There's just no way. I see this could go either 2 ways. It could either go be a close one, Well, I'm thinking it's going to be a blowout on Illinois. I should say Illinois is going to blow us out. And I don't see us winning very much at all. And if you look back to the beginning of the year, I said 5-7 with Spencer at the helm. So
which is weird because last year you predicted, let's call a spade, Hawkeye
yes,
Howard.
I
Last
did.
year you predicted 12-0 with Spencer at the helm.
Yes, I did. And we lost 2 games, but we were big West champions.
You're right. You were right on that, and so was I, because I predicted West champions.
So that's I honestly think we're going to have a hard time with Northwestern. We may not lose the game, but we may. I'm telling you, we're that bad. A junior varsity team, high school team can beat us. So, but that's just my opinion. You know me. I've talked to you before up here. Like, I'm fed up with them. You know, fed up with Brian. Fed up with the coaching staff. Fed up. You know, like that one guy who tweeted, "We're stuck," and I'm not a person like being stuck. So, but also I wanted to point out one thing. You kept saying the divisions are going to change. They're going to do away with the divisions. You know why they're doing that, right? Because Penn State's not getting into the national the championship game. What they're going to do is or Michigan State, they're going to position it where the like Penn State or Michigan and Ohio State and everything are going to be in the championship game more often than other teams like it is now. You won't see a Minnesota or maybe a Wisconsin, or Iowa or even a Northwestern. You won't see them in a national championship game as much as it is now. I can see that coming right off the bat. So whatever they do there, you can honestly say, I can tell you right now, the brand name schools are going to be in the championship more often than other schools. So mark my words.
I don't have any issue with that comment. And yeah, I mean, when the divisions change, regardless of what they look like, if there are technically divisions, if they're pods, if it's just one big conference, yeah, there's no question about it. You're absolutely right, Hawkeye Howard. I think this goes back to the more macro conversation that we've been having about the program and regardless if if Iowa makes changes, say Brian moves on after this year and they were able to go after, I don't know if this will happen. Do I have faith it'll happen? No. But if they go after somebody who's an offensive mind, the offense gets better next year, regardless, it doesn't change the fact that they missed a huge opportunity in 2022 because this is a really good defense. And I think it's got a chance to be a special defense. And what you just talked about, Hawkeye Howard, is the fact that this is going to be harder to win your division moving forward. It's going to be harder to make, I should say this, it's going to be harder to make the Big Ten championship game.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you're right. This is, I had said it, before the season started, I said, look, you better take advantage of the situation they're in, of a West division that's not great. It's okay. It's a good, it's okay compared to the other divisions in the SEC and the Big Ten. Like, it's still one of the best divisions in college football because it's in the second best conference in college football, but it's not comparable to the Big Ten East. It's not comparable to the SEC West. And just imagine when things get redistributed. And yeah, maybe Iowa gets USC and Penn State in its division or pod. What's that going to be like? Or maybe they get Illinois. Now Illinois is better. Yeah, these are all valid topics.
Yeah. But as soon as Brett went to Illinois, I was like, nope, he's going to have Iowa's number because he knows the scheme. He knows Kirk. So, and if you look at their team and watch them, they kind of play like Iowa, so. But, that's about it. I just wanted to touch base. I know you want to get off. You're getting tired. So you have a good day, Corey, and great show. Everybody, before you guys leave, hit that like button down there, okay?
Thank you, Hawkeye Howard. Appreciate you. You have been a trooper since like day one. So appreciate you being here and all your phone calls. All right. Let me get through some of the questions that I missed earlier. First of all, appreciate the compliment from Jamie. Thank you for being here, Jamie, and appreciate, again, the kind words. Blake says, would Iowa hire Jarrett Riley as the OC or QB's coach? I'm going to be completely frank with you because I'm try to be objective and honest on the show. I have no idea who Jarrett Riley is, and maybe it's because it's late at night. But Jarrett Riley. Who is Jarrett Riley? Jarrett Riley. Okay, maybe I'm completely crazy. Jarrett Riley. Oh, Garrett Riley. Okay, Garrett Riley, the guy at TCU. Okay, sorry. The Garrett. Okay. I don't know much about Garrett Riley other than the fact that I'm just seeing here that he's the OC at Texas Christian. You know, and I also don't know the transition when you look at, you know, Big 12 and Big 10, the contrast in style. Certainly, Iowa's got an opportunity with, I think, adding USC and UCLA to the conference. Actually, you have an opportunity perhaps to attract not only recruits, but coaches that maybe are coaching at the likes of the TCU, right? Who knows what the future of the Big 12 is going to be like? That is a potential advantage. You have disadvantages and you have advantages. Those could be potential advantages that if you're shopping for a coach like a Garrett Riley, perhaps you have a better chance of landing him, given the fact that Iowa is going to be playing in one of the two best conferences, maybe the only two power conferences in the country. Again, not knowing what the future of college football looks like. Kevin says, do you expect a full crowd in Illinois? And after the Rutgers game, do you think it makes a difference? I mean, I think it makes a difference, Kevin. I just think Iowa's better than Illinois, or excuse me, better than Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers was also down to its third string quarterback. That offense is not good at all. This is a much more rounded Illinois team, but I don't think that crowd's going to be full. I don't think the stadium is going to be full. We talked Saturday, and I thought it would be sold out. And then I saw a day or two ago, there were like 20,000 tickets available, according to some guy on Twitter, I'm assuming is a legitimate source. So, boy, I doubt you're going to sell 20,000 tickets, get 20,000 people, butts and seats in this amount of time. But I do expect it to be a good crowd. But it's going to take time for that. I mean, Illinois is a basketball school. It's going to take time for support to get to the point where they consistently have packed stadiums. Nathan, what is the value of Rasiopi? Seems a lot of hope with marginal results. Well, don't always blame the tree, blame the apple, I guess. Maybe that's the wrong way of looking at it because it's kind of the opposite of what we would typically say. We typically say don't blame the apple, blame the tree. But with Tony Rasiopi, I mean, it's not like he hasn't had success. I think you got to give him some credit for Kenny Pickett's success, and now he takes over as a starter with the Steelers. Again, how much credit do you give him? I don't know. Mark Whipple probably deserves some credit in his development as well, but I don't know. Rasiopi's also the private instructor for Marco Lainez, who I'm high on. So, how will Marco Lainez work out here? You hope he does. But it's a valid question because right now we're not seeing results on the field with Spencer Petras. Obviously, he keeps getting clients, though, Nathan. I mean, that's the thing. He keeps getting clients. There's a ton of kids using him. So he's obviously got a good reputation. So I don't want to take shots at him for this. But as far as it relates to Spencer Petras, that has not worked out. That project has not worked out. Jeremy says, well, I will make a bowl game. At this point, I would still say yes, although I'm not going to go on the record with a final record prediction. But I do think that 6-6 is not out of the realm of possibilities. 5-7 isn't out of the realm of possibilities. But I do think if I had to guess, they will still make a bowl game. You don't got to be great to make a bowl game nowadays. Tony, which school is your biggest rival in the conference in football? In the conference, I would like to think it's Wisconsin, but in reality, I don't think Wisconsin probably views Iowa to be its biggest rival. It's not Nebraska. It's probably Minnesota because of the history. But again, we're talking in conference. I'd like to think it's Wisconsin because Wisconsin and Iowa, I mean, you think about development, those two schools, the epitome of development over the past 10 to 20 years, especially at its marquee positions. Wisconsin, it's running back and offensive line. Iowa, it's been the tight end position. And of course, they develop guys all over on defense. But we'll see what the future at Wisconsin looks like. I think Jim Leonard will get it. I think Jim Leonard will be the next head coach, for the record, not just the interim. I think he'll be the permanent head coach there, and I think he'll get it done. But it'll be interesting to see the dynamic moving forward between Iowa and Wisconsin, because Wisconsin's dominated this series of late. Ari Gold says, which of the 10 offensive plays we run is your favorite? I really like the stretch right where we lose 5 yards, Ari Gold. That's my favorite play. Ricardo, appreciate you being here. He says not a Hawkeye fan, but appreciates the show. So thank you, Ricardo. Ryan, is Don Patterson going live late Saturday night? Probably not attending, so he'll be on pretty quick. Good guessing, Ryan. Yes, he'll be on live with us on Saturday following the game against Illinois. So definitely tune in. Hopefully we'll be able to keep the drunk callers away. I know sometimes when it gets late on a Saturday night, we're going to deal with that on a call-in show. Hawkeye Howard says, do we see a lot of players going to the portal because of the offense and not willing to make a change? I don't know about a lot of players. You're going to have players enter the portal every year, Hawkeye Howard. But I would not be surprised, just like last cycle with Charlie Jones leaving, there will likely be a player or two or more that leave because of A, lack of playing time, or B, the offense, and just not being able to showcase a skill set. And I think primarily you look at wide receiver, because that's where I was seeing the most attrition in that regard on offense due to the transfer portal. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody being here. A reminder, if you want to sponsor this show or the show with Coach John Patterson, email me from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. When we come back, we're going to be right back with one final segment. When we come back, we're going to be talking specifics about what you should look for during the game on Saturday, and can Iowa get to a bowl game? I've been kind of teasing that. I know this is kind of the theme of the show heading in, and we've kind of been holding off on addressing that specifically. We'll be talking about that in moments. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, Ascent Nutrition and Under the Kitchen. Both of those companies have been doing great things as it relates to supporting this channel. Randy Engel doing great stuff with Hawkeye artwork at Under the Kitchen in Mitchellville. And, of course, Lance Shuttler, former Hawkeye, doing great stuff for Ascent Nutrition, including this awesome coffee that's mold and mycotoxin free. So we'll hear a message from both of our sponsors for this evening. We'll be right back with our final segment here on Hawkeye Hangout. Hawkeye fans, let's talk about health and performance optimization for a moment. Our sponsor, Ascent Nutrition, offers amazing products. It's actually owned by former Iowa graduate Lance Shuttler. Now, I've decided to partner with Ascent Nutrition because of their unique approach to human health. Ascent offers an organically grown mold and mycotoxin-free coffee. It provides a pure, clean, and rich flavor without those pesticides that most coffees are treated with. They also offer an algae oil DHA, which is used to support brain health, memory, and focus, as well as proper nervous system development in adults, children, athletes, and even pets. Now, lastly, their unique crafted wild pine pollen is used to support cardiovascular health, hormonal function, and a healthy libido. Your purchase not only supports this channel, but the business of a former Hawkeye. Visit goascentnutrition.com or click the link in the description below and use the code Hawkeyes. That's the code Hawkeyes to receive 15% off your total order from Ascent Nutrition. You may have heard of the real-life Hawkeye man cave known as Kinnick Under the Kitchen. Well, after lots of hard work, there's not much space left to paint, but the walls are exploding out for public consumption. Under the Kitchen is proud to announce that you can now purchase exclusive prints of some of your favorite Hawkeye legends, including wrestling great Spencer Lee, football players Arlen Bruce, Riley Moss, and Tavian Banks, plus an all-in-one Murray family legacy print featuring Keegan, Chris, and Kenyon Murray himself. Signed and unsigned prints are available, making the perfect collectible or gift for any Hawkeye enthusiast. For more information on purchasing one of these outstanding Hawkeye prints, visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook. That's Under the Kitchen on Facebook. It'd be helpful if I had my mic unmuted. Wanted to just thank, again, Ascent Nutrition and Under the Kitchen. Visit goascentnutrition.com. Use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off. And yes, Randy Engel, Under the Kitchen on Facebook. That's Under the Kitchen on Facebook. So will Iowa make a bowl game? That's the $1 million question. And boy, heading into the year, I'll admit I predicted Iowa would go 9-3. I predicted Iowa to take care of business against Iowa State. I thought Iowa had a chance in the Michigan game. I'd have to go back and look at my original prediction preseason. I think I did have Iowa winning that game. Now, in the week of, I picked Michigan to win. So things changed. It's a fluid situation. But now let's take a look at the schedule here to finish off our show this evening, because I feel like looking game by game can kind of put it in perspective as to why I think there's a better chance Iowa misses out on a bowl game than actually win the West. I think that's pretty clear right now. But again, you may disagree with me. So this is Iowa's schedule. I'm stealing this from ESPN, of course. But as you can see here, let me get rid of the banner. Hopefully we can blow this up a bit. All right, so as you can see, maybe I can zoom in even more here. We've got Illinois this weekend. You've got Ohio State, Northwestern, Purdue, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Nebraska. So let's just, for the sake of this discussion, assume that Illinois is a win. All right, so then Iowa moves to 4-2. We're going to assume Ohio State's a loss. I think that's by far the most likely scenario. So they're likely looking at best, they're looking at 4-3 heading into the last game in October. Now, they should beat Northwestern at home. That'd make them 5-3. Now, no guarantees there. They've struggled against the Wildcats. They've struggled against Pat Fitzgerald. On the road at Purdue, who's predicting a road for Iowa for a win at Purdue right now if you're a Hawkeye fan? I certainly am not. Now, maybe they go in there and win, but Jeff Brahms had Iowa's number. You don't think Charlie Jones is going to want to have a big game against the Hawks? You don't think Tyrone Tracy's going to be showing out in that game? Both those guys will play a lot and play significant snaps. And Charlie Jones has been one of the best receivers in the country since he transferred to the Boilermakers. So, I mean, you can say you think they're going to win that game. That'd make them 6-3, but I'd have to favor Purdue right now. No question about it. That'd make them 6-4. Now, let's assume that Iowa can beat Wisconsin, but another team that Iowa has struggled against, that would make them, what would that make them now? I'm losing count. 7-4. No, let's see. I'm already losing count here. 6-4 at this point if they were to beat Wisconsin. 6-4. And then, of course, at Minnesota, I mean, right now I'd pick the Gophers at 6-5, and then Nebraska 7-5. So, assuming they can beat one of those teams in there, yeah, you could look at look at the schedule and somewhat conceivably see 7-5. But if you lose to the teams they should probably lose to, Ohio State, Purdue, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and maybe you don't agree with me that they should lose to Wisconsin, but just given the track record there, that's 7. That is 6 losses right there. And that's assuming they win against Illinois, assuming they beat Northwestern, and assuming they beat Nebraska. Now, these things are hard to predict. I understand that. But for the sake of this discussion, I'm just trying to put it into perspective here, why it's not inconceivable that they could go 6-6 or 5-7. Now, how do they go 5-7? I think maybe that's the question you're still wondering. Well, you lose this Saturday. They're not favorites to win this game. They're underdogs against Illinois. So you lose Saturday. That makes them 3-3. You lose against Ohio State, they're 3-4. You beat Northwestern, you're 4-4. You lose to Purdue, you're 4-5. You lose to Wisconsin, you're 4-6. You lose to Minnesota, you're 4-7. And you get a win against Nebraska, that makes you 5-7. But guess what? You miss out on a bowl game. So it's not inconceivable. At this point, I said this earlier, I would still guess that Iowa makes a bowl game. All right, that's my guess right now, based on the schedule. Now, will Iowa end up 6-6, 7-5? I think last time somebody asked me this question, I actually answered it. I said 7-5. I'd still stand by that. I think that's likely. But again, I think more likely that Iowa goes 6-6 than finds a way to go 9-3, 8-4, and wins the West. I just don't see that happening. I don't know how Iowa possibly competes in that Ohio State game. I really don't. I mean, what Iowa experienced this past Saturday in Michigan is just going to be an elevated version of that on October 22nd at Ohio State. And I just don't know how Iowa, especially if you can't stop the run. Now, they struggled against Corum. Typically, Iowa's a defense that shows out against the run. But, boy, if you get Trevion Henderson going and get that run game, I think the only hope Iowa has in that game is if you can somehow stop the run. So your front seven is going to have to play lights out and force C.J. Stroud to beat you, which he'll do. he'll do that anyways. But if the run game's going, it's the game over. I mean, it's game over in the first quarter if that happens. So again, I know it's not, these are just predictions. Nobody really knows, but given the struggles on offense, but given the defense where it's at, I think Iowa could conceivably be as good as 7-5 and as bad as 5-7. But I don't know how much flexibility there is in there. I can squint and see 8-4. But man, that would be quite a feat, folks. That would be quite a feat to basically beat everybody else. I mean, that's again, assuming they beat Minnesota, win 2 of the games against Minnesota, Purdue, Ohio State, and Wisconsin. And I just right now I think Purdue might be my favorite still to win the division at this point. Given the fact that they won on the road at Minnesota, but Minnesota's had their moments this year as well. So fascinating stuff. And of course, we'll get an update. We'll get an update on where Iowa's at on offense. I know Kirk Ferentz is touting progress. We'll see how much progress is actually present here on Saturday in a tough game at Illinois. Reminder that you can follow me on Twitter at From the Hawkeye. You can also like the page on Facebook, From the Hawkeye of the Storm. I'll be with you Saturday for a live edition of Iowa postgame with Coach Don Patterson. Of course, the game starts at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on BTN. Iowa postgame with Coach Don Patterson right here on Saturday following the game. And, of course, if you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button. And, of course, you can join. You can become a premium subscriber to support the channel as well. And, yeah, we'll be back on the air this Saturday. But, of course, content throughout the week leading up to the Illinois game. Appreciate everybody being here, and I'm sorry I didn't get to some of the comments there at the end. It's getting late here, and as you can tell, my voice starts to go out towards the end of the day, and my mind starts to go with it. So we'll see everybody soon. Thank you for being here, and have a great week.